Little lunchtime smoke, something unusual for me. Burley. And a pure Burley, uncased as far as I can tell. It's this Quebec Manil Semois. So it's pure Semois from Vincent Manil Tobacco in Belgium. So it's a strong Burley varietal from Belgium. I smoked some of the super fine cut of this same stuff yesterday. What did I do with the baggie? It's around here somewhere. I mean, it is so fine, it is like steel wool. You know, it's that cut that fine. It's not quite that wiry, but it's much softer. But I've never seen tobacco cut that fine. And you know, it actually smoked pretty well for me. There wasn't maybe a whole lot of flavor. Makes quite a bit of smoke. It is strong. There's a definite edge to this. I'm smoking Brian Doran pipe. He's from Wheeling, West Virginia. Great guy. Electrician, I believe, from 2013. One of his pipes. He does these big stubby pokers real nicely, I think. And they're reasonably priced. You know, the asking price is like 115 usually, thereabouts. But the starting price is like 80. So, you know, for a big handmade pipe, that's pretty good. And they smoke nice. They all smoke nice. Yeah, this is pretty strong stuff. Not something I would smoke every day. So let's temper it. I'm home for lunch. So, with a little bit of lunch. A green smoothie. You go, oh, what is that? Well, it could be a lot worse, I'll tell you. If it had like seaweed in it and all kinds of stuff. It doesn't. It just has a couple big handfuls of spinach, banana, a little unsweetened soy milk, or almond milk, actually. And that's it. Great thing about a Vitamix blender is it keeps all the stuff in there. You know, all the fiber, all the everything, instead of like a juicer that spits out the good stuff and leaves you the clear stuff. I never did really understand that. Why juicers were so good. Plus they're a mess to clean up. You know, it's like this green slop. So I was out driving today, unfortunately for me, and so somebody was tailgating me, and I was like, "Yeah, son of a bitch!" And I was thinking, you know, I'm angry about that. What the heck is that about? You know, it's like this person's tailgating me. It is the reality. So, what's to be upset by that? You know, why be upset by that? Yes, they could rear end me really easily. But it was more my anger about that. And it's so clearly revealed itself to me that it's like I had this expectation that they shouldn't do that. And I didn't examine that expectation. I just like had that sort of built in. I had accepted that reality that people shouldn't tailgate us, right? I think we all probably share that. And so that was why I was angry. That was being violated. I mean, this all seems so obvious, right? But, but you get angry about it. I got angry about it. And it's like, well, that just isn't a very useful emotion right then, you know. It would be much more useful to just be dispassionate about it and say, oh, they're tailgating me. That does put me at greater risk for injury should they rear end me, which is more likely because they're so close. Rather than, you son of a bitch, you know, and my blood pressure going up. So, and that's kind of the key, what I'm talking about here, is I've been kind of working on my blood pressure with the passive, ignored help of my cardiologist. God, I tell you, when a doctor ignores you, it's just like, ugh, you're on your own. So, so a little backstory here. Some friends of mine, older, one of them was suddenly in the hospital. It's like, what the heck? So I went over there and talked to the resident doctor on the hospital floor for that week, and a great guy. And he sat down with us, and this was the first time anybody had heard a possibility of what happened, and so his supposition sounded pretty good. It was, this guy had a little pneumonia, he was dehydrated, and he was a little out of it because of that, and he wasn't taking his meds. He takes like way too many meds. One of them is a 4-time-a-day Parkinson's med. I can't even pronounce it. Philobobble. So if you don't take that, if you just suddenly stop, it produces symptoms where you have very little muscle control, you're delirious, you know, bad things. Well, that's why he was hauled into the hospital. So he is 88. All right, let's give him that. He's 88, okay. So when I went in to see him, he'd been in there 2 days. They'd had IVs filling him back up with fluids and a little antibiotics. He was back to normal. So a little grumpy, a little cranky, but a great guy. So the doctor was pretty sure it was the Parkinson's med, just by the symptoms. And that all sounded pretty reasonable to all of us. So that got me thinking about side effects. And I've been having nighttime leg cramps like crazy. I mean, it's just like it'll wake me up, and I'll yell out. The cat leaps off the bed. I have to stand up and walk it out. And it's just like, what the hell? So I just thought, well, I'm maybe dehydrated. Maybe I need some more potassium. And again, my doctor is sort of semi-available. Not really. So after this little experience at the hospital, I was thinking about pharmaceutical side effects. And sure enough, I looked up some. I'm on 2 blood pressure reducing. They're kind of the baby steps towards lowered blood pressure. And one of them, sure enough, number 1, leg cramps. So, getting off that thing. Well, the thing is, they're diuretics and they pull potassium out of your system. So I was taking some additional potassium. I had a supplement there. Trying to eat more bananas and blueberries, and isn't doing a thing. So I'm embarking on the pipe smoker's diet to lose a little weight. Because honestly, I resist it, but I've been carrying 40 pounds for about 40 years. And, you know, I could lose that. So, and that would very likely help me win my blood pressure lowering marathon. So, that's what I'm aiming for, and getting rid of those blood pressure meds. So. So anyway, I was originally going to talk about expectations and how we have these expectations. And we don't examine our expectations. See, there's the problem. There's where the rub is. And so when something happens and our expectations, it happens all the time. I was at a meeting last night, a community meeting. There's a bridge being put in to replace some culverts on this creek. It's kind of a main road. So the bridge is this BFD, this big freaking deal. And it was going to be finished in December. Well, the contractor's a piece of work, and so now it won't be finished until March. And there's even some question about that. So the community was just like, what the fuck? And rightly so. But they had an expectation. And so they didn't examine the reality of that expectation, or the fact that it could change. The reality is what the reality is, and we often don't really look at that. We prefer our expectation to the reality. So it should be this way because I want it to be, So to me, a lot of self-awareness is just simply being aware of that on that simplistic level. We aren't even that aware of our own expectations, We never look at them. We just assume they're correct and fly with them, and then when something happens to change them, the flight is late. And so you're going to have, it's like you stress out and you freak out because your expectation's been violated. So, but you never look at the expectation. Oh, well, it's just an expectation. The reality is this. The reality, I hate to even use the word, he's corrupted that word. The reality trumps your expectation. It overtops your expectation. It is more important than your expectation. It simply is. Unless you can change that reality, and honest to goodness, a lot of times we just can't change a lot of our realities around us. I could change the reality of this and add a little something sweeter to it. But I know what to expect, so I'm not disappointed. I'm not angry at this because it tastes like I'm drinking some green sludge. No, actually, it's better than that. The almond milk and the banana really help. But this expectation thing, God, we do it all the time. All the time. And having expectations helps grease the skids, and helps us just kind of slide efficiently through life. Because you don't have to consider everything and stop and think about everything, and you just kind of go with it. But that's your peril. So one great thing about this burley is it burns down to just white ash. Just a real clean burn. That was kind of a burp smoke. Good way to, sometimes if you give a gentle puff out, it'll help the combustion. Keep it going. So anyway, expectations and satisfaction. Satisfaction is where your expectations more closely match reality. I'm going to throw that out there. So people who are dissatisfied and they just aren't happy with things, it's their own expectations. It isn't the reality. The reality is neutral. It simply is. It may not be good for us, but there are those people who can make lemonade out of lemons. So, it just is. It's our expectations that get us into trouble. And we never stop to examine them. We just go ahead and get angry. And then feel justified in being angry. It's just like, it's kind of nonsensical. But, gosh, we do it all the time. Yeah. Stuff burns pretty fast, though, I will say. This is it's a 7/8 diameter chamber, so getting your finger down there is kind of tough. And about tamping with fingers, personally, I like it. I always forget to carry a tamper. It's like one more thing to carry. But this also puts you in touch with the tobacco, and you can feel if it's built up along the sides of the bowl and needs to be kind of scraped down and put more in the middle. Often it's not real hot because the burning portion is kind of down in a little bit. So those of you who are skeptical about my finger tamping, it puts you in closer contact with your tobacco. And, a tamper is just one more gadget, one more decorative gewgaw. Pipes are overly decorated as it is, if you ask me. So I always, when I did use a tamper, and I did when I first started smoking, it's like, oh, you got to use a tamper, right? So I'd use a golf, the little thingy you put the golf club on, or the golf ball on. Clearly not a golfer. The tee, right? So, and those are perfect in many ways. A sharp end and a flat end. They're long enough and they're cheap. So they'd go through the wash and, and I'd reach in a pocket. Ow! What was that? Oh, it's that damn golf tee. I just gave it up. Brian makes a nice pipe. Brian Doran. So, what is he? Briar Guy on eBay. Definitely worth a look. If you've never seen his pipes. And if this style appeals to you. He has different pipes that he makes too, different shapes. But this is kind of his signature, I'd say. Plus, he's just a great guy.